Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, June 19th, 2024, and my name is Angie H, and I am a recovered Al-Anon and will be leading this meeting. We want to welcome everyone to our Al-Anon Big Book Recovery Meeting. This is a step speaker meeting that meets every Wednesday night at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will study the 12 steps by using the precise instructions out of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous as they relate to us as Al-Anons. Let's get our meeting started. This is the original AA preamble written by the AA Grapevine, describing the fellowship in 1940. We study the preamble with an open mind and open heart to consider how it applies to Al-Anon. This helps us to stay focused on the message of recovery the pioneers intended, while observing the traditions in action. Through the actions taken based on the instructions of the basic text, we comprehend what the pioneers meant when they described the membership of AA, which is that they worked a program of recovery and they no longer drank. In our case, we no longer obsessed over the alcoholic. Through continuous action and study of these principles, the understanding of the value of the original preamble reveals itself. We ask for your humble consideration of our sincere admiration of the pioneers of Alcoholics Anonymous. The simple hope is that we of Al-Anon will grow into the same clarity and unity that birthed the original 12-step fellowship, because without them, after all, none of us would be here. The original AA preamble. We are gathered here because we are faced with the fact that we are powerless over alcohol and unable to do anything about it without the help of a power greater than ourselves. We feel that each person's religious views, if any, are his own affair. The simple purpose of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is to show that we show what may be done to enlist the aid of a power greater than ourselves, regardless of what our individual conception of that power may be. In order to form a habit of depending upon and referring all we do to that power, we must at first apply ourselves with some diligence. By often repeating these acts, they become habitual and the help rendered becomes natural to us. We have come to know that, as alcoholics, we suffer from a serious disease for which medicine has no cure. Our condition may be the result of an allergy which makes us different from other people. It has never been permanently cured by any treatment with which we are familiar. The only relief we have to offer is absolute abstinence, the second meaning of AA. There are no dues or fees. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. Each member squares his debt by helping others to recover. An Alcoholics Anonymous member is an alcoholic who, through the application of and adherence to the AA program, has forsworn the use of any and all alcoholic beverages in any form. The moment he takes so much as one drop of beer, wine, spirits, or any other liquid containing alcohol, he automatically loses all status as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is not interested in sobering up drunks who are not sincere in their desire to stay sober for all time. Not being reformers, we offer our experience only to those who want it. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and on which we can join in harmonious action. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our program. Those who do not recover are people who will not or simply cannot give themselves to this simple program. Now, you may like our program or you may not, but the simple fact remains that it works and we believe is our only chance to recover. There is a vast amount of fun included in the AA fellowship. Some people might be shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity, but just underneath there lies a deadly earnestness and a full realization that we must put first things first, and with each of us, the first thing is the solution to our alcoholic problem. To drink is to die. Faith must work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. In order to set our tone for this meeting, I ask that we bow our heads in a few moments of silent prayer and meditation, followed by the Serenity Prayer. Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not mine, be done. I wish to remind you that whatever is said at this meeting expresses our own individual opinion as of today and as of up to this moment. We do not speak for AA as a whole, and you are free to agree or disagree as you see fit. In fact, it is suggested that you pay no attention to anything which might not be reconciled with what is in the AA Big Book. If you don't have a big book, it is time you bought one. Read it, study it, live with it, follow the directions in it, and learn what it means to be an AA. And that's the end of the preamble. A sponsor is anyone who has had a psychic change as a result of working the steps and has the willingness to work with others. For those looking for a sponsor to guide them through the steps, please stay tuned and have your pens ready to record phone numbers immediately after the meeting. Each Al-Anon group ought to be a spiritual entity having but one primary purpose, that of carrying the message to the Al-Anon who still suffers. This is our primary spiritual aim. Our job as a group is to provide people with a place to learn about and work the steps. It has been our experience that working the steps consistently provides us with a better, saner life. We consider all else to be an outside issue. This includes personal problems. The proper venue for sharing such problems is with the sponsor. This is, after all, where real recovery takes place, in working the steps with the sponsor. We are just so glad we are all here, and we are all here because we are not all there. There will be a period of fellowship after the meeting. If you have questions, if you need a sponsor, if you need to check in or get current, or if you want to discuss other literature, please stick around for the fellowship. That would be a better time for these subjects. All right. So, if you're new here, this is our step speaker meeting. Excuse me, I have to get a drink. So the first Wednesday of the month are steps 1 through 3. So I reviewed steps 1 through 3 at the very beginning of June. And then the second Wednesday, I talked about steps 4 through 6. And tonight we're going to be talking about steps 7 through 9. And then next Wednesday, we'll be talking about steps 10 through 12. So I will be giving a brief review of the previous steps up to this point. So just a brief review, sorry. And if you want, you can listen to the other recordings, and that will give you more insight. So yeah, let's see here. Okay, so just in reviewing, let's talk about step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Also, before I begin, I am using the 4th edition of the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book. So you can turn to page 59 and all of the steps are listed there. Or if you don't have a big book, you can actually look up a PDF on the AA website. I believe that's where you can find it. So lots of ways to look at the big book, or you can just listen, whatever you would like tonight. So step 1. Now, we admitted we are powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. And, this step, it's kind of confusing for us to understand. Our step 1 is the same as the alcoholics. And I know when I was brand new, I thought it was like, I'm powerless over people, places, or things. But that's not really the case, because people don't have power, right? That's a human. So this is an important step for us. We have to be all in at this step. And yeah, what does that mean? We're powerless over alcohol. And so the alcoholic is powerless over alcohol, right? And we aren't powerless over alcohol unless you have the alcoholic gene. But for us, once they take that first drink, and they set that spree up, they keep going. They can't stop, right? If they're the chronic variety, they're not going to be able to stop on their own unless they like black out or, whatever the case may be. So, they start drinking. And then for us, that makes us go down that rabbit hole of thinking, right? Like that control, manage, manipulation, trying to fix the alcoholic. That's what we do. So we are powerless over alcohol because the alcoholic in our life is powerless. And this is a very important step because it really takes that gift of desperation here, and knowing that, like, well, first of all, the alcoholic needs to know that they have tried everything to stop. And we're studying this book to have a better understanding of the alcoholic's illness, but as well ours, right? Because it is a very misunderstood illness. And so, yeah, both things are true. We're studying the book for ourselves, but also to have an understanding. And we get that by studying this big book. So basically at this step, you know, this is very sad, but like we just try everything to control and manage and fix the loved one that's, an alcoholic because that's all we know, right? Like we get that ease and comfort from knowing that we're in control. Because there are a lot of what ifs, right? And it is a family illness. So we're not bad people. The alcoholics aren't bad people either. But at this step, we've tried everything and like our life has become unmanageable. We can't stop. We can't stop obsessing. So that is really why we end up here. And we basically take our step one before we even get to the rooms. But it's this inability to stop and stay stopped for good and all. That's really what this step is all about. And the other part of it is we have to be toast and basically know that we're toast, right? It's admitting in our like heart of hearts, getting down real deep and like recognizing that there are no other options for us. Like we are done. Like, we say we're going to stop and we can't stop meddling, right? So that's a little review of step one. Step two, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So yeah, it's step one. If we admit we're powerless, well, guess what? We're going to have a power greater than ourselves, and it cannot be a human, right? Because we already know human aid fails us. So if we come in at step one and we have that gift of desperation, we have hit our rock bottom. We are so tired of being sick and tired. Like we're willing to do anything. And I know that's where I was when I came into this program. I was so desperate. It's exhausting to be trying to control and it's not just the alcoholic. We start controlling everyone. We want to control everything, everyone in our life because it gives us that ease and comfort. So yeah, if we're powerless when we get here and that gift of desperation and we're ready, it's not really hard for us to latch on to this idea that maybe there is a power greater than ourselves that can restore us to sanity, right? And I know for me, like it wasn't very hard. Like I was nervous to work a 12-step program. My mom was an alcoholic and all I remember hearing about was God. And so I was nervous. But then when I got here and I found out it wasn't a religious program, it was a spiritual program, I could do that, right? And also I was just so tired. I would stand in a corner if my sponsor told me that's how she recovered. Like, go stand in a corner on your head and okay, I'll do it, right? So that's really what that step's all about. It's that gift of desperation and just having a little hope. And we actually get that hope when we get here and we hear the recovered members sharing their stories of where they used to be and how they got better, right? So that's what step 2 is. Let's see, step 3. Oh, yeah. So steps 1, 2, and 3, really important here. These are our decision steps, okay? And they're meant to be taken pretty quickly. Again, we're already here at step 1. Like when we get here to the rooms, we know that our life is unmanageable. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. If the way we were living our life is okay, we wouldn't need to be here. So steps 1, 2, and 3, it's like boom, boom, boom. You just take it, right? Step 3 is an important step, but it's also the last decision that we're going to make before we launch out into action, right? And so this is like a very pivotal point. It's the turning point. It's like the fork in the road. We can just keep going the way we're going. Yeah, I know. Okay. Yep. I'm powerless, but yet I still think I can control it. Yeah. Okay. Well, then go keep doing what you're doing. But yeah, I mean, it really boils down to how willing are you to go to any lengths? Are you willing to do this? Um, are you willing to move forward? Are you willing to admit, like, get honest with yourself and admit that, like, you don't have this figured out and you're going to need help. So this is the last decision step. And if we look at it, it says made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Okay. So yeah, it sounds really scary, but our will and our lives, those are our thoughts and our actions. Now, when we get to this step, we're not going to know how to do this. That's, that's fine, right? This is just, we're making a decision to continue on with the rest of the steps. That is all this is. Okay. It's nothing more than that. It's just making that decision. And also we're making that decision to hand over the steering wheel to our higher power. From here on out, everything will be of our higher power's choice, right? No longer our choice. So that's really what step 3 is about. So after we do our third step, then we launch out into action. And step 4, that's our first action step. It says, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So first step here of action, right? And the big book repeats this so many times. I wish I knew the number, but faith without works is dead, right? We have to put action behind it. It's not enough for us just to take steps 1, 2, and 3 and then do nothing with it, right? This is a work the steps in order type of program, but also it's not a take what you want, leave the rest type thing, right? Like we have to work all of these steps if we want the recovery that the pioneers of AA received. So, in doing this moral inventory, this is where we're going to get real honest and we're going to write down all of that junk that we've been holding on to. It's basically clearing out all the old food, all the stinky broccoli from our fridge, right? Like we're writing down our resentments, our fears, and our sex conducts. And this is going to help us to have that psychic change. Because believe it or not, this stuff, we've been just holding on to it for years and it's just blocking us off from our higher power. Okay, so that's step 4. And then we have step 5. Now, so we write out all of our inventory, and step 5 is when we are actually going to review it with our sponsor. And of course, our higher power will be there. Excuse me. So we are going to review this inventory with our sponsor. And honestly, this is probably the first time that we have got like, we're going to get really honest, not only with ourselves, but with our sponsor. And this is a very humbling process. It's a very ego deflating, humbling process. And this is setting the stage for our program, like the rest of our spiritual growth steps that are going to be talked about later. But this this is setting us up to have that psychic change because we've been holding on to stuff for years and living in these stories. Not to say that they're all just like fabricated, because sure, like, yeah, living in a home, maybe like me, I was raised by an alcoholic, and then my twin brother became an alcoholic. So not to say that these stories aren't real, because yeah, it caused a lot of damage to me living with alcoholics, but guess what? I caused a lot of damage too, right? With my constant trying to fix and manage and, um, all of that stuff that we do. So now we're going to see things differently, but our sponsors are going to be there to help guide us and help us see the truth because we cannot see the truth. We've been holding on to these inaccurate like beliefs and stories. But again, not to say that people haven't wronged us. There may be abuse. There may be trauma. There may be all sorts of stuff, going on, but how are we wrong? Right. So we're going to look at it from today instead of looking at it from a place of like the past, like maybe we were a child that was abused or whatever the case may be. We need to let go of that stuff, right? Because holding on to that is killing us. Okay. So this is where we're going to get a new set of eyeballs. This is where we start making that happen. So, step 6. So after we review our inventory with our sponsor, we are to go and meditate for an hour. And so step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So, after we review this, we have a better understanding. Uh, we can consider the other person, in our resentments, for example, like we can start to consider a different side, whereas before we weren't able to do that. A lot of times we're just so like in victimhood and, the self pity that we're not able to even see that, like we're, we're holding on to that. And what good is it? Right? Like what good is it doing? So, this step, we're actually going to be, um, ready to have God remove these things from us because we see that it's not helping us, right? So this step really is where we're making a commitment to become practitioners of, our step work. That's really what this step is about. Because we're not going to really know how to do this. And we just ask God to help us be willing to remove these shortcomings, which brings us to step 7. So, we take our hour of meditation and then, when we're ready to have God remove those defects of character, we do our 7th step prayer. But before I say that, step 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. So this is actually the completion of step 3. And I just recently, it's like I knew it, but I kind of just maybe forgot about it. But, so I want to kind of review this because it was pretty, amazing for me, insightful, I guess you could say. So let's see. So step 3. So, when we're making that last decision step to turn our will and our life, over to the care of God, we will say this 3rd step prayer, which is on page 63. And it says, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. And notice it doesn't end with an amen. So it's supposed to be, that, we say the 3rd step prayer and that takes us, we're committing ourselves um, we're committing ourselves here. We're saying this third step prayer, but we don't know how to do this yet, right? Like we don't know how to turn our will and our life over. So then we complete this at step 7, where we're humbly asking him to remove our shortcomings. So when we go to page 76, this is where we're completing our third step. So it says, my creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go from here to do your bidding. Amen. See, it ends with amen there. So we're completing our third step with our step 7, right? So again, like this may be hard for us. We may be clinging to things that are really hard for us to let go of. And that's okay. We just have to have the willingness. And if we're still clinging to something, we ask God for the willingness to remove it, right? And so, yeah. So basically, we are recommitting to our higher power here. Again, we're handing over the steering wheel to our higher power. From here on out, everything is going to be of our higher power's doing, right? Good or bad. So I thought that was really cool. So it's like I knew that, but just interesting, right? So really cool. So now our job is, we're handing everything over to our higher power, and then we're going to keep practicing. We're going to work on our spiritual effectiveness every single day. And our job is to do the next right thing. That's it, right? The rest is on God. As long as we do the next right thing, God will handle the result, whatever the result may be. Now, maybe we don't like the result, right? But it's not our job. We're no longer running the show. It's our higher powers. So, we finish our hour of meditation. We ask God to remove our shortcomings, and then we say our 7th step prayer. And again, like we're not meant to work a perfect program. So, don't get that confused. Like this is a spiritual progression, spiritual progress, not perfection, right? This is what this program is based on. Spiritual progress, not perfection. There you go. I got a little tongue tied. So, we just have to have the willingness to start seeing things differently. And this really sets our foundation, right? Like we don't want to skimp on the cement. So we need to make really sure that we are not leaving anything out of our inventory purposely, right? Like really sure that we were rigorously honest, because willingness and honesty is like those are the foundational steps. So okay. So after we do our 7th step prayer, then that brings us to our step 8. So step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So yeah, so we're going to take that inventory list, and guess what? All of those people that we wrote, they're all going to go down on our amends list. And we're not going to get wrapped up into, oh my gosh, like I can't make amends to this person right now. No, we're not doing that. We are going to be willing to make amends. Now, there are reasons why we might not make amends to someone. Okay. Like if it's going to cause harm or let's say we're going to drag someone under the bus. Maybe we were in on some kind of crime with somebody else and like we want to make amends, but it's going to drag that person under the bus with us. Like we're probably not going to want to do that, right? Like we're not going to drag somebody else under the bus with us to make amends. So Each amends are going to be different. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's not worry about that yet. Let's just talk about this list. So we're going to make a list, and my sponsor gave me a really good suggestion of categorizing this list into now, maybe, later, or never, right? Now, it would be very dishonest of me to just put everyone on the never list. Because I might as well just leave at that point, because what's the point, right? If I'm not willing to see that I owe amends to people, then I need to just leave, right? So yeah, if I'm working with someone and they're like, well, I don't owe amends, like I think they missed a big piece, right? They're missing something. And so maybe we need to go back and have a discussion about all the harms that we have caused. Okay. So this is very important. And, again, like, people may have harmed us. Maybe, maybe they are more to blame than, than we think, and we don't think we owe them an amends. Well, guess what? Yes, we do. It doesn't matter about if that person's 99% at fault and I'm only 1% at fault for this resentment. Nope, it doesn't matter. We're going to make that amends, right? Because we were wrong. Okay. So again, this is a very humbling process, but time after time, people have tried not to make amends. And guess what? They go right back to their stinking thinking. And so, yeah, if we're willing, and we said we were willing to go to any lengths, then we need to do this, and it's very important for us. And again, like, well, let's read about this. Okay. So on page 76, I don't need to keep talking. Let's read in the big book. Okay. On page 76. Okay. So yeah, now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which was accumulated out of our effort, live on self-will, and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. Yeah, so see that? It's in italics. We would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. So very important. If we want what the pioneers got, we have to follow these steps, right? And yeah, like, it seems pretty scary to have to go out and make amends, even to someone that we may not like, right? But guess what? Our sponsors had to do it, and everybody before us had to do it. So we're just continuing on in this process. And if we want to get over our crazy thinking and controlling and managing the alcoholic, then we're gonna have to do this. And guess what? It turns out to be pretty great. It's pretty great what happens when we make these amends. And that's actually where we start to have our psychic change. Without making these amends, we would not have a psychic change. So think of that. So, and let's see. So, what else do I want to talk about in this? Okay. Yeah. So we are going out and we're trying to sweep away the debris. That's what our job is, right? God's going to handle the result, right? We already handed the steering wheel over to our higher power. God's going to handle the rest. It doesn't matter. The door may get slammed in our face. People may not want to hear from us, right? We've been really good at apologizing to people our whole life, but this is going to be different. This is a fact. Like, we are going out there to clear away the debris that has, like, piled up. right? It's very different than just saying, oh, I'm sorry. Because our sorry is always usually selfish, right? It's a selfish motive behind it because we don't like when people are mad at us, right? It's this approval seeking business, right? We're people pleasers. um, we don't like people to be mad at us. We don't like people to have negative emotions. Guess what? That's not our business anymore. It's our higher powers. So, if we go out and make these amends and people slam the door in our face or they're mad at us or, like whatever the case may be, okay, well, that's not up to us. So just remember that. um, okay. So then let's see. So it goes on to say, probably there are still some misgivings. And I'm on page 76 again. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's talk about step 9. I'm jumping ahead. So step 9, make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So again, like we are going to work very closely with our sponsor on these amends. We're not going to go out and start making amends without talking with our sponsor first because we could cause more harm than good. And we want to make sure we got the right wording down, that we're not saying things that could be hurtful or harmful. And we certainly don't want to give amends to people if it could injure them, right? Or others. So this is a very, every amends is going to be different. And that's why it's very important that we are working with a sponsor. So we're going to try to make direct amends wherever possible. But again, there are certain instances where we would not do that. And our sponsor will help us with this. But I can think of a case where I haven't spoken to someone in years, like 20 years or something. And I needed to make amends to this person. And, but we were not close anymore, but she was my very best friend. So I needed to make amends and I should have made direct amends, but yet I lived in a different state and my sponsor warned me. She was like, well, you can't just pick up the phone and call her because that would be putting her on the spot. Right. So we had to think about it and she told me to write her an email because that would be like writing, a letter to someone. So I did that. And the other thing I want to say is there are some people in my life that are no longer here. And I ended up writing letters to them. And I just said them out loud to them. And that was that. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful process. So anyways, there are situations where we can't make direct amends, but if it's possible, we want to, right? So let's talk about different situations, um, about like different situations when we are making amends. So it says on page 76, I'm on the very bottom, probably there are still some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel diffident about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. Yes, so probably not a good idea to lead our amends with, I've got religion. I'm reminded of Ebby when he did that with Bill, right? Like, I've got religion. Probably not going to work in our favor, right? And again, like they don't probably care. So yeah. So we might prejudice them. At the moment, we are trying to put our lives in order. But this is not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce that we have gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. Why lay ourselves open to being branded fanatics or religious bores? We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message. But our man is sure to be impressed with the sincere desire to set right the wrong. He is going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries. Ugh. So what this is really boiling down to is that, we talked a lot. We can talk and talk and talk, but what's more important is action, right? Action always speaks louder than words. So what's more important is that we are making these amends, and then, we're asking like, what can I do to make this right? And that's what we do from here on out, right? Again, we're not going to be perfect. We're going to mess up. We're going to be making living amends for the rest of our life. And that's exactly how it should be, right? But yeah, we definitely don't want to lead with the spiritual feature. And we want to be sincere, right? We're not saying, oh, I'm sorry, but, like don't throw a but in there. Like that's totally erasing the whole amends, right? Just like it would if we were making an apology, which this is completely different than that. Like, again, we're clearing away the wreckage, right? The debris that's accumulated. That's our only job. The rest is just water under the bridge, right? Whatever happens, happens. We're just doing our part here. So, let's see, what else do we want to talk about here? Okay. So we don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God when it will serve any good purpose. We are willing to announce our convictions with tact and common sense. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. It may be he has done us more harm than we have done him, and though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. So it doesn't matter. We may not like that person. I had to make amends to someone that I really just did not. I didn't feel I owed an amends because she was very difficult. But guess what? I did, because I caused harm. So I was willing. I was willing to make these amends. I was shaky. I was like terrified. And guess what? The outcome was like the best result I couldn't have even imagined. So she ended up making an amends back to me. So I'm just saying that, like, we can think and like, oh my gosh, we just fear so much. Like, oh, that person's gonna, oh, no, I couldn't possibly do that amends. And guess what? 9 times out of 10, it turns out to be great, right? Um, okay, let's see. I know I'm kind of running out of time here. Um, Nevertheless, I already said that. Nevertheless, with the person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth, right? It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. Ah, yes. So, under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply we tell him that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. So yeah, again, like this is our amends. We are making these amends. It's not about the other person. It's not about how they are more at fault. We're not going to argue or criticize. What good is that? What good does that do? We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so, never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. Yes, his faults. So again, like he may be more at fault. That's not what we are discussing here, right? We are only talking about where we are at fault. That's it. Again, this is not to say people haven't wronged us. It's going to happen and it's going to keep happening. That's life, right? Okay. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own fault. So feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. We have made our demonstration, done our part. It's water over the dam, right? So there you go. Some people may not want us to make amends and they may throw us out. Okay, well, we were doing our part, right? So the rest doesn't matter. So again, there are many different types of amends that we may owe. And the big book and our sponsors will give us directions on how we're going to handle these because each situation is different. So there's going to be times where we have to make amends to people we hate, or maybe we owe money, like creditors. Maybe we have committed crimes. Maybe we have, committed adultery. Or maybe there are people involved in these, maybe we have committed crimes or something, and other people are involved. And of course, there are going to be people that we are not going to be able to see, or, for instance, like the people that have passed away, right? And for those situations, we can write letters. So I'm going through that because there are different scenarios and different situations. And of course, like the big book, let's talk about creditors. Most alcoholics owe money. We do not dodge our creditors, telling them what we are trying to do. We make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyway, whether we think so or not. Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory it may cause financial harm. Approached in this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. Arranging the best deal we can, we let these people know we are sorry. Our drinking has made us slow to pay. We must lose our fear of creditors no matter how far we have to go, for we are liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. So again, like if we're not willing to make these amends, like we're probably going to go right back to our crazy thinking, right? That's what's going to happen. It tells us so. Okay, so now let's talk about maybe we committed a crime. Perhaps we have committed a criminal offense, which might land us in jail if we were known to the authorities. We may be short in our accounts and unable to make good. We have already admitted this in our confidence to another person, so we admitted it in our inventory with our sponsor, right? But we are sure we would be imprisoned or lose our job if we were known. Maybe it's only a petty offense, such as padding the expense account. Most of us have done that sort of thing. Maybe we are divorced and have remarried, but haven't kept up the alimony to number one. She is indignant about it and has a warrant out for our arrest. That's a common form of trouble too. So see, it's going through the many different cases. And that's what's great. Like we are given direction. We are not doing this alone, right? Let's see. So then let's see. Although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding, reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience. We ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. Ah, yes. So again, this willingness, right? We have to be willing. And we already said we were, so we have to keep going, right? We're not going to shrink. We're going to make these amends. We have to. Let's see. Usually, however, other people are involved. Therefore, we are not to be the hasty and foolish martyr who would needlessly sacrifice others to save himself from the alcoholic pit. Okay, so yeah, if there are other people involved, this is saying we're not going to throw them under the bus, right? Like that's not okay, because then we would just be causing more harm than good, right? Um, okay, I'm almost out of time. So let's go and talk about, yeah, so after we take our first amends, and again, like our sponsor will tell us, like, go make this first direct amends. Let's see, I'm going to talk about, wait, there's one more thing. Let's read on page 83. It says, this spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not to urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. They will change in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone. So yeah, our loved ones may be really skeptic. And again, like maybe our alcoholic loved one isn't in recovery. That doesn't matter. This is all about us, right? This has nothing to do with whether or not they recover. This is about us. So they may be skeptics, right? Like, yeah, right. Like you've tried controlling and managing me like this whole entire time. And now I'm supposed to believe that you're going to stop. And, yeah. But again, like we have to live this. So we are going to be practicing these spiritual principles in all of our affairs. We have to, right? Actions speak louder than words. So over time, our family members and friends and loved ones, they will see that we mean business and that we are changed, but it's going to take time. And again, this is not an overnight matter, right? So there may be some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves that we would right them if we could. Some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter, and there may be a valid reason for postponement in some cases, but we don't delay if it can be avoided. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone. Ah, it's so beautiful, right? We're just sweeping away that debris. And if we do that, then, we make our first direct amends, then we are recovered. That's it. We're recovered, right? Now there's action. Again, there's more action, right? Like we don't just graduate. Um, so again, like next week, we will talk about the spiritual growth steps 10 through 12. But I want to leave us here with the 9th step promises. It says, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Ah, that's it, right? Again, like God handles the result, right? And that's it. That's all I am going to talk about tonight. So again, next week we will talk about steps 10 through 12. So in closing, 7th tradition, every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. This group does not have a payment structure in place and currently requires no overhead expenses. If you would like to fulfill Tradition 7, please direct contributions directly to the Al-Anon World Service Office by visiting alanon.org. For questions about this meeting, or if you are looking for a sponsor, please send emails to alanonbigbooksrecovery@gmail.com. Recordings can be accessed on YouTube by searching at Al-Anon Step Speaker in the YouTube search box. If you are interested in other Al-Anon meetings that follow the Big Book, please visit www.alanonbigbooksolutiongroup.org. Now I will read from page 164 from the Big Book. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but you obviously cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and for countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Now, let's have a moment of silence for the Al-Anon who still suffers, followed by the Lord's Prayer or a prayer of your own choosing said in silence. Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. All right, and that is the end of our step speaker meeting tonight.